Okay, just a quick update here before we get started. I've done a daytime scene, I've done a nighttime scene. What I'm going to do is I'm going to package up this daytime scene, and this will be the asset pack that you download. And in the following lectures, I'm going to show you how to create a nighttime scene. It's based on the concept. It's very, very rich in color, very saturated, because that's what the concept is. And but this is like I said, daytime scene. You can see that on the screen now. So I'll package this up, and then I'm going to teach you how to do the nighttime scene, so you'll have both, and you can play with both scenes. You know, your one, which will be nighttime, and this one, which will be daytime. And if you download this one, I urge you to play with it. It's not perfect, far from it. You know, and it still needs a lot of work, and we'll talk about that at the end when we walk around the scene. The ambient occlusion is very heavy, you can see. That needs toning down. The field depth of field is a bit too strong. You can see the blurriness up close to the camera. All these things are quite cool, but they're just placed to make things look more obvious on the screen when I'm showing it to you. So you can tweak them to whatever you want. That's the whole point. So I'm going to package this one up. I'm going to show you how to create the nighttime scene in a very saturated way, just like the concept. But you know, your lighting is your lighting. It's entirely up to you to do what you want to do. So let's go forward and start lighting the scene. I just want to go through a few things prior to starting our lighting, just to make sure that you've got everything set up correctly. And the first thing I want you to do really is just organize all your geometry and all your objects in your scene, like I've done here, so it's all nice and neat. Just so you know where everything is, you can get to everything quite easily, quite quickly by the naming that you've called them. So that's the first thing, pretty straightforward, and it shouldn't take you very long. I mean, theoretically, through the course, you should have kept it nice and neat and tidy as we've gone along anyway. So hopefully it's all nice and neat like that. So that's the first thing. Okay, the next thing is your objects. In your assets meshes folder, go to meshes in your high poly folder here. So all of your meshes that you've imported into Unity. Let's take a look at our rocks, for example. All of these, click on each one like this, and over here you'll see a set of tick boxes which you need to set up. Now this is the most important one: generate light map UV. In fact, I have recently imported a new mesh, so I'm going to go and do that in my trees folder. This one here. Okay, so you can see this is what it comes in like when you bring it in from Max. And what I generally do is take off most of these. I don't need import lights, I don't need cameras, I don't need to import my visibility, I don't need to weld vertices because my objects are pretty tight anyway, they're all welded. I don't need to import blend shapes. I can keep optimize mesh ticked, because you can see the vertices and indices will be reordered for better GPU performance, and that's not a bad thing. And you want to leave that ticked. Also, mesh compression off. You don't want it to compress any meshes. But the big one down here, the big tick box which you need to tick, is this one here. It's not going to generate any light maps on any of the objects unless you've got this ticked. You need to go through all of your objects and do this to them. And when you've done it, when you've ticked generate light map UV, come down here and click apply and let Unity set up a light map UV for that object. So that object has now got a light map UV assigned to it. And I've already done all of these. I do it as I bring them in. So just make sure all of your objects is done, basically. I think, yep, you can select multiple objects at once and just go through and do all of them at one go. So it won't take you very long. So you need to go through each one, make sure they're set up like that. Generate light map UV is ticked, and you click apply once you've set them up. That's really important. Okay, the other thing in your scene here, right, you need to make sure that all the objects that are static are ticked static up here in the top right corner. Tick static. And again, I think you can select all of them together. So if I select all of these, click static, say yes to children because I've got clusters in there, and there, they're all selected and they're all static. So pretty straightforward. So do that too, and that way all static objects will get baked when we do the light maps. The light maps will get baked for that object and will be static, which is what we want. There's a bit of a balancing act with static objects and non-static if you want your lighting to be real time, because you've either got, if your scene is really small, then real time lighting is probably not a bad thing. But if you've got a massive open world scene, then real time lighting might not be the best thing. However, if you bake down your light maps, then you've got to consider memory, because it creates extra maps for your light maps. So, it's up to you. It's what's more important. Is it performance? Is it memory? That's something you're going to have to decide for yourself. Okay, so the final thing I want you to do is just click on your directional light, which is your sun, which is creating all this lovely light and shadow here. If I turn it off, you'll see nothing. Hello. Right, okay, so I just want you to make sure that your shadow type is soft shadows. Make sure you've got that selected. If you have no shadows, well, you won't get any shadows basically. So you need to make sure, and if you do hard shadows, they look a bit ugly. You can have hard shadows if you want hard shadows, but I much prefer soft shadows. And the last thing I want you to look at is if you go into the lighting tab, there's a whole lot more we're going to cover when we get to the next lecture. When we start making this scene at nighttime, there's going to be a whole bunch more. So, but these are just some of the initial elements I want you to set up before we just sort of go forward. So down here, you should have done this already. I think I told you at the start to do this, but I'm just checking that you've done it. Is make sure this auto generate is not ticked, otherwise it will just keep generate the light maps constantly, generate the lighting, and you will, your PC will start groaning under the weight and the workload. So just make sure it's ticked off, and it will save you a lot of pain until you're ready, and then you can go tick, generate lighting. Okay, so that's it for now. So all set up. We're going to take this scene and we're going to make it at night time like our concept. So I'll see you in the next lecture.